Welcome to Think BRICS, Mr. Lissovolik.
Thank
It's
you
a
so much.
pleasure to see you this time in person. So
It's a
thank you very
pleasure.
much.
Thank you
You
for the
chose your
invitation.
time to come to us again. For those who turning in for the first time, let me say that Mr. Yaroslav Lissovolik is the founder of BRICS Plus Analytics, a research and analysis platform focused on BRICS and global development. You can find his biography and background on the official website of his. So we won't go through it because otherwise it would definitely fill in entire episode. So if you are curious, please head over to bricsplusanalytics.org. So the link is also in the description. Yaroslav, let's jump into the core of our interview. So we know that you were just in Brazil for the Dilemmas of Humanity conference in São Paulo. There you explored how countries might deal with growing global economic challenges. And coming up soon, the BRICS Summit will be in Brazil, but in Rio de Janeiro. So I would like to start with Brazil's leadership, if you don't mind.
Mhm.
With the July summit in Rio coming up fast, and Brazil is the chair. So, what do you see as its top priorities and strategies for the year? And in particular, how might Brazil focus on economic development and outreach with other countries under the BRICS Plus format?
Well, I think it's great that Brazil is positioning itself as a major promoter of BRICS presence in Latin America, and this issue of outreach of BRICS to the wider global South, to Latin America, is one of the key themes. So it's really great, I think, that we're seeing that Brazil is inviting its neighbors from Latin America to participate in the BRICS Plus meetings this year.
Uruguay,
So
Colombia,
one of them
Mexico.
is Uruguay, and this is going to be the first time that Uruguay is going to participate in the BRICS Plus outreach meetings. This is going to be Chile, and Chile has already confirmed its participation. And again, this is the first time that Chile is participating in BRICS Plus meetings, and then Colombia as well. And these are the three economies that previously were kind of more in the shade vis-a-vis BRICS and BRICS Plus outreach activities. So it's great that in a region in Latin America that is probably less affected so far by BRICS expansion, Brazil is very active in engaging and establishing linkages to those economies that have until recently not been as active in working with BRICS. So I think this is probably going to be one of the main and very important, very positive contributions that Brazil is going to make in the course of this year to BRICS development. The expansion in the array of economies in Latin America that are going to cooperate with BRICS. And we're already seeing that some of the economies with this momentum with regard to BRICS Plus, some of the economies like Colombia are now pursuing the path of joining the new development bank of BRICS.
Yeah.
The same, by the way, with Uruguay. This is something that is really important to emphasize. BRICS expansion is not only about the increase in the membership of the core, but it's also about the widening of members of the new development bank. And that is a more pragmatic, more of a economic track, if you will, of BRICS Plus. That will be very positive, I think, for the operations of the new development bank further down the road, and generally for BRICS presence in Latin America.
We should say that last year it was G20 in Brazil. So this year it will be BRICS Summit, and later again this year it will be COP30.
Yes, which is something, by the way, that I think is to some degree positive, because clearly the focus this year is on Brazil in many respects. But at the same time, you would want these very high-profile events not to overlap. And to be kind of positioned sequentially in such a way that Brazil has the possibility to build from one event to the other, the momentum and the kind of the momentum behind its proposals and policy initiatives. And currently, the when you have a situation when these two events happen in the same year, they to some degree crowd out each other, may crowd out, overshadow each other, and I think it's a bit of a problem. But otherwise, I think what this means essentially is that the environmental agenda will be, to some degree, will feed into the BRICS agenda as well, and the BRICS priorities of Brazil. So one of the themes that we're seeing in the course of this year is that Brazil, during its chairmanship, has declared that BRICS economies are launching a platform of land restoration, something that I think is great, something that is very important. BRICS economies account for a significant part, not just of the land mass in the world. They're amongst some of the largest economies in the world, but they also account for a significant part of the land mass that needs to be restored. And combining the efforts, creating a platform to address this theme is something that is, I think, spot on. And it may be, in my view, one of the most important decisions made by BRICS in the past 5 to 10 years. We in BRICS Plus Analytics, we singled out the creation of a platform for land restoration as one of the key priorities for the global community back last year. And I'm very glad to see that Brazil is starting to pursue this policy track in the course of this year.
Thank you. BRICS is now expanded, 10 core members, then broader circle of partner countries. So there are plenty of them right now. So this brings, from one side, this brings more voices. From the other side,
yes,
it makes the process of making decisions more complicated.
Absolutely.
And you have suggested BRICS Troika format. Could you please walk us through?
Yes.
What does it
Troika
mean?
is a very Russian word. You could say concept as well. But the bottom line is that this arrangement is used across most of the international forums and international organizations, whether we take the G20 or regional groupings like the African Union or ASEAN. And this is about the following. This is about bringing together the current presidency in this or that forum, the presidency that preceded this presidency from the preceding year, and the presidency from the future year, from the next year. And this troika allows for a smoother succession of presidencies, whereby some of the policy initiatives that were launched before by preceding presidencies, they continue to be addressed. Within the troika, this mechanism works in such a way that these policy impulses are not lost. Okay. And this succession of presidencies continues to address those policy priorities that were raised previously.
So, like an example, for example, last year it was Russia, Brazil, and the next will be India. So you propose that Troika format is working like Russia, Brazil, India.
And then, if there are policy priorities that were launched,
then Brazil, India, China. Then India, China.
Exactly. So South this Africa. Is like, a moving troika, so to say. And if there were policy priorities that were launched by Russia vis-a-vis the payment system, etc., we've all seen those policy priorities. That kind of an arrangement, it would allow for those policy priorities to continue to be monitored, to be worked on for the next several years. This is one theme. The other theme that I think also makes the potential Troika arrangement very important is that a lot of the other regional groups, whether it's ASEAN or the African Union, but also global organizations like global forums like the G20, they operate on the basis of troikas as well. So in terms of the connectivity of BRICS vis-a-vis these regional blocs and forums, global forums, it makes sense to create this troika and to operate on a troika format with other forums and organizations. So it basically, potentially, the creation of this troika improves the connectivity, the capability of outreach of BRICS to the wider global community, and the capability to also coordinate some of the policy initiatives that are coming from BRICS to other global forums.
It would be interesting, really, but there is one question about that. We know that in BRICS there are some countries are rivalries to each other. So how much of a challenge does that pose to set up a troika system?
No question. There will be challenges, and obviously whatever contradictions there are, and there are contradictions within BRICS, those will make new mechanisms more difficult. But at the same time, I think another value of the troika format may be precisely in bringing together some of the members of BRICS and forming, even if temporary, coalitions. Within these troikas, you can have coalitions and countries being brought closer together, discussing maybe some of the issues that arise between them that they need to resolve, but also coming up with common initiatives that they can advance together later on. And that essentially is a mechanism that allows these economies to work closer together. The more formats of potential cooperation amongst the BRICS Plus economies, the better. I think what is lacking in BRICS so far is precisely something like this troika arrangement, something that allows for a plurilateral mechanism format that brings together not all of the BRICS economies, but say 3, 4, 5 of them on specific policy issues. So this troika format, I think, may be a catalyst for driving more the formation of these plurilateral alliances within BRICS, because BRICS is becoming bigger and bigger and bigger, and it's going to be very difficult to operate on the basis of always unison consensus.
It's almost impossible.
So more scope for these kinds of alliances, I think, is very important in order to keep the policy agenda, working, going forward. I think new ideas like that are very important. There were a lot of scholars previously that were saying that we need mechanisms in order to connect the BRICS with the G20, for example, to a greater degree. This is precisely, I think, the mechanism. Maybe there will be other mechanisms in terms of the best practices used in regional arrangements, global organizations that could be taken on board by BRICS. Maybe another theme could be the regional principle. Some of the global arrangements, they use the principle of the regional groups, or the regional geographic principle being considered in the succession of presidencies and setting the policy agendas. Something like that increasingly makes sense for BRICS, because BRICS is starting to become bigger, more present in various regions. Virtually all of the regions of the global south are now represented in BRICS Plus. So I think greater attention to the regional principle within BRICS may make sense. And I think going forward, the BRICS will need to accord greater attention to issues of regional balance. So the presence of countries from, say, Latin America to a greater degree in BRICS, because currently, compared to Asia and Africa, Latin America is underrepresented. So things like that, I think, will become more important as the partnership belt is built, as you have the widening of this BRICS outreach.
Thank you. About regions, if we zoom out to the bigger picture of global economy, your recent work from Sao Paulo conference stresses the need to add a regional layer to the global economic governance. And you have described a missing link between national and global systems. So can you explain us this gap and how the global South can help fill in
Sure,
this gap?
sure.
This gap.
I think we're in a unique situation in the global economy now, whereby you have a lot of protectionism coming from developed economies, and the global South clearly has the capability to deliver a contrast effect to a significant degree and open up the markets to each other, have more of an opening of economies on the basis of South-South cooperation. And this could be done on the basis of creating platforms of cooperation amongst the regional integration blocks that are now within the global South, are mostly responsible for trade policies, whether this is Mercosur, more and more this is ASEAN, the Eurasian Economic Union as well. So this is one theme, the creation of a platform for regional integration arrangements, something that does not exist in the global economic architecture currently. You have essentially a two-layer system currently in the global economy. You have the layer of national economies, and you have the layer of global organizations like the IMF, the World Bank. In between, there is no layer, structured layer of regional...
Something to connect.
Something to connect them, exactly. So what you need, in my view, is this layer of governance that consists of, first of all, the platform for regional integration arrangements, and this will be trade, the liberalization of trade, but also there could be platforms for regional development institutions like the regional development banks, the regional financing arrangements. And for regional development banks, there's a tremendous demand for connectivity projects, digital connectivity as well within the global South, something that cannot be addressed solely by the new development bank. This calls for what I call syndicated regionalism, basically bringing together all of the regional institutions that the global South has in different regions of the world and co-financing such projects together with NDB. And with NDB's cooperation, already NDB cooperates with a lot of these regional development banks. You just need a more formal, more structured platform in order for this to work more seamlessly going forward. There is every opportunity now for the global South to deliver a unique contribution to the reform and the reshaping of global economic architecture, not by eliminating or completely changing whatever exists, but by adding structures that make the whole construct more stable, by adding these regional pillars to the global economic architecture that connect the national level and the global level of global organizations. I think it makes sense. And I think a lot of what Brazil has been doing in promoting regionalism in Latin America is very much in this vein. So the next step, I think, has to be to connect the dots, across the global South, and to bring together these regional development institutions and the regional integration arrangements.
And NDB in this structure, which role takes?
Co-financing. So it co-finances projects together with these regional banks. And to a significant degree, the presence of such a platform of regional development banks relieves the pressure on the new development bank in terms of its capital, in terms of its resources. And I think a coordination role in terms of hosting, for example, expert discussions on the building of pipelines for priority projects. That is something,
Consultations.
yeah,
Also.
that is something that NDB could do as well. The problem that I see currently is that almost everything is centered on NDB
Yeah.
as essentially one of the few, if not the only, institutional mechanism that exists in BRICS. So what you need is more platforms that would take some of this pressure away
To
from NDB.
diversificate
Yeah,
the.
yeah, exactly. To have more pillars, more mechanisms that complement and work together with NDB.
Not substitute, but complement.
Exactly, exactly, exactly. Yeah.
I see. We cannot not okay. We cannot avoid talking about tensions, rising tensions, especially about import tariffs that the United States of America imposes. A top concern, this issue, the top concern at the recent BRICS foreign ministers meeting in Brazil. In your opinion, how are BRICS members responding to the economic risks?
I think this is the case when challenge is generating a response from BRICS. The challenge of this protectionism is generating, I think, a very targeted response in the sense that the BRICS are now finally starting to explore trade cooperation, not just on a bilateral basis with each other, but on a multilateral basis within the BRICS platform. There are finally the discussions that we're hearing about most recently this year in terms of what the response of BRICS may be to this challenge of Western protectionism. They are about a common response of BRICS in the trade sphere.
Like
Vis-a-vis
Brazil, like Brazil told that they would go to WTO together with all global South countries.
to address
Yeah, to address
these protectionist measures. So what is great is to see that, first of all, there is now a mechanism in place within the WTO that brings together all of the BRICS economies in terms of consultations on key trade issues. This is something that I've been calling for a very long time. After Russia's accession to the WTO in 2012, all of the BRICS economies were in the WTO, yet there was no common grouping of BRICS within the WTO and no common trade policies, approaches within this global organization. This is changing, and we're now hearing that this mechanism is going to be employed by BRICS economies in addressing these protectionist measures. But consultations aside, the most important thing that the BRICS can do in these circumstances and more generally is to boost South-South cooperation in the trade sphere by opening markets to each other. This doesn't have to be done in a massive way. It can be done incrementally, gradually. But I think it's very important, first of all, to send this contrast effect vis-a-vis the Western approach, vis-a-vis what we're seeing from the United States. But most importantly, for regions like Africa, this is absolutely crucial. This is the best thing that can be done by BRICS to lower tariffs in a preferential way to the regions that need market access the most, regions like Africa. In a lot of the cases, import tariffs are still very high in some of the BRICS economies, and there's tremendous scope for even a very moderate decrease in these tariffs in order to allow for greater South-South trade. We're starting to see South-South trade really outpacing global trade in terms of growth rates. And this process is starting to unfold. This is something that I called in my publications the great reconfiguration in terms of the shift of the global economy away from the excessive dependency on the global north in terms of trade, in terms of investment, more towards South-South cooperation, economic cooperation, and of course, initiatives to liberalize mutual trade between developing economies would be the single most important factor in expediting and strengthening these trends of the greater prominence of South-South cooperation. And of course, the BRICS and BRICS Plus would be the ideal platform for something like that to happen.
Thank you. Talking about trade, let's look at the proposed idea of BRICS grain exchange. Well, a lot of talkings about this proposal, and talking about Africa mainly because they are the one of the biggest importers of grains, and 4 of the major grain producers in the world are in BRICS. So this is a big topic. What is the main goal of this exchange, and what are some of the expected benefits we see?
I think this is a very important trend, and this is not just about the grain sector. This is, I think, something that is more general that we're going to see as a trend, namely that developing economies are going to launch platforms of cooperation across sectors where they have where they are majority producers. So just like with OPEC Plus, you will have, whether it's the grain exchange or other platforms.
Commodities exchange.
Yes, other commodities exchanges, maybe this will be about metals, rare earth metals. There are a lot of other sectors where the majority of resources belongs to the global South. And of course, by forming such platforms, the economies of the global South, they receive the capability to be more in control of these resources, and in terms of pricing, in terms of the dividends accruing to the global economy from the trade and these resources, they are more in a position to benefit from these resources. So I think this is about essentially the ability to derive the dividends from owning these resources to a greater degree. But another very important part, and this goes to, again, the topic of the grain exchange, is also the payments, the payment system, the financial kind of infrastructure around these proposals. This is essentially addressing several targets at the same time, but by the same initiative. It's not only about resources, it's also about the financial system and more of the financial flows that are related to the trade and these resources, again, being centered more in the global South rather than in the exchanges in the global North. So that may be a trend that we'll see with regard to other commodities going forward, whereby it's not just about trade and commodities, it's also about financial flows. But in order for that to happen, of course, you need complementary measures in terms of trade and transactions in national currencies, payment systems. All of that needs to be developed to a greater degree in order to support these kinds of initiatives.
But as soon as that idea appeared about grain exchange, a few days later, there was a concern mainly from the Western countries. They raised concern about that, talking that, they are trying to create a cartel like an OPEC, so they will manage all the prices, the commodity itself. So and the competition market may suffer, they say.
But at the same time, they're also forming their own platforms and cartels.
How valid are those worries?
Well, I think that this is only to be expected in an environment of protectionism, an environment of trade wars, etc. You should only expect developing economies to create mechanisms that essentially secure their access to the dividends that they may receive from these resources. So I think it's to some degree it's a very expected, natural reaction to the trends in the global economy that you see. But at the same time, I think there needs to be a more constructive approach to such proposals, also coming from the West, in terms of how to cooperate with such platforms, resource platforms, how to integrate them into the global decision making. How could this be integrated into, for example, the G20 mechanisms? How to discuss pricing and access to these resources in global international fora. This is the discussion that is needed, rather than basically just accusations. Yes. So I think thinking through the mechanisms of how these platforms are integrated into the global economy is the next step. And I'm sure there may be mechanisms in which countries from the global north can also participate and benefit from such mechanisms. The discussion that is missing right now in the public debate is precisely this next step: how to integrate these systems into the global economic system.
Thank you, Yaroslav, for your insights and for your, I don't know how to say, explanations for us about BRICS, about Brazil's role, and why the shifts happening in the global south. To our viewers, please leave your questions in the section below, because we would like to know your opinion, so we could engage another time with Mr. Lissovolik for another interview. So like, subscribe, and support our channel with donations. Links are in the descriptions. And thanks for watching.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.